Welcome to the first episode of the Create a Life You Love podcast. That is maybe the first time I'm saying that out loud. As of today, we are no longer mom empowered. Still the same person behind the microphone. Still me, but just different conversations. And if I'm being really honest, I'd say that this rebrand has been long, long overdue. Um, Talking about anger and anxiety and mental health and motherhood, these things will always be important to me. I feel like that's so important to emphasize because I know, I'm sure some of you are wondering, like, are we just never going to talk about that again? Is that just not a part of your story anymore? It definitely is. I'm not going to stop sharing it. I'm not going to stop talking about it. But I will say that these last couple of years, it has just become so painfully obvious how much more God has put on my heart. And I'm just ready to honor that. I'm ready to expand the conversation. So I'm not ending any conversations, I'm just expanding them. Um, I feel like I spent quite a few years talking about the things that people expected me to talk about and trying to fit inside like this box. And I just don't want to do that anymore, even if that does rub some people the wrong way. In fact, today I did share my new website, my new brand, my new mission with the world. And I did definitely get some really kind messages and some supportive responses. But there was one message in particular that stood out to me. Kind of made me laugh, kind of made me sad. But one woman emailed me to tell me that me going from helping moms with anger to now helping moms or women create a life they love, um, is coming off as generic and empty. And one, that's fine. I do know that these changes, these new conversations will not resonate with everybody. It really is true what they say, you can't be for everyone, right? But two, I realize that I would so much rather be seen as generic than spend any more time performing to meet other people's expectations of me. And really, what she sees as empty is actually just me being fully honest about who I am and where I'm at and being obedient to what I feel called to create. Now, from a marketing standpoint, yeah, it does sound pretty generic as hell. I will admit that. But the thing is, it doesn't matter, at least not to me for right now. What matters more to me is that I get to speak to more areas of life where I see so many women hiding and playing small and just not fully living in alignment and honesty and joy. I really do feel so certain of my purpose right now, and it's to help women, all women, any woman, not just moms, really help them go after their purpose and build a life where they can be fully, completely, authentically themselves. I know there are so many of you listening today who have these beautiful visions and dreams for your life. You have this ambition and drive and passion and creativity. But when it comes to actually turning that vision into action and really leaning into these things, I know how easy it is to get lost in the minutia and responsibility of life and end up settling for something that just doesn't light you up. And I want to see you lit up. Like, I want to see you just so full of purpose and joy and being and doing all the things you were created for. I'll be honest, I used to feel really guilty and embarrassed about how ambitious of a woman I was. I don't know if it's because of my Christian upbringing or from just being in certain motherhood circles or just because of different messages from society in general. But I did think for a long time that I was wanting too much and that it was not humble or holy of me to have these large dreams and aspirations. And can I just say, for the record, thank God I see things so differently now. Now, I do think that success, just for the sake of success, can be empty, right? But going after a goal or a vision or a dream because you feel it calling to you and because you have lives that you're going to impact through it and joy that's going to spill out of you because of it, I feel like that is something so beautiful and holy. Women living and leading and creating with purpose. This is what I'm here for, and this is what Create a Life You Love is about. As generic as it sounds, there is something very powerful about this kind of work and these kinds of conversations I want to have. Now, there is a lot more to this rebrand, and if you want to learn more about it, definitely check out my new website, jessiearedia.com. It's officially live today. I'm so excited about it. And if you're not already, you may want to follow me on Instagram. I know it's kind of been a ghost town over there for the last few months, but I promise I'm going to be sharing more and peeling back the curtain more now that I actually know the direction I'm going in. I do want to take you behind the scenes, and I am creating some really exciting things. So I hope you'll come along for the journey. But as for today's episode, I just want to share some thoughts, a few things that have changed my life these last 5 or so years, and that I'd say have enabled me to be able to say that I really do love waking up to my life. There has been pain and grief and failure and loss, but wow, I'm just so thankful. I'm thankful for how good and kind our God is. I'm thankful for what I get to experience, the depth, the joy, the peace, the relationships, the purpose. I'm thankful for how I get to show up in this world, which is just fully me, fully Jessie, creative, ambitious, fun-loving, audacious, courageously honest. I hope that as you're listening today, the wheels start turning and you maybe even hear a still small voice leading you to the next right step, just leading you in the right direction, and ultimately leading you to a life where you can fully come alive and be who you were made to be. So let's just dive in, starting with number one, which is getting clear on your vision for your life. I feel like we have to start here because if this part is missing, if you don't even know what you want or what matters to you or what you're hoping for or working toward for your future, I feel like everything else is just going to end up kind of scattered. And to tell you the truth, what I actually think is that it's usually not a clarity issue, it's a permission issue. When I say get clear on your vision for your life, I'm not just talking about the clarity of like knowing what you want and what you're envisioning for your future, but really it's about letting yourself want it and letting yourself go after it. Um, right? How many of us we daydream, we have these these ideas that we save as we're scrolling on our phones, as we're talking with friends, we journal, we think things through, we envision things for our lives and for our families. But I feel like there's so many women who, we have the strong sense of, wow, I'd love to get there. I'd love to do this. I'd love to be this kind of woman someday. I'd love to be this kind of mom, this kind of business owner, this kind of leader. It's almost like there's still this pull back to reality that keeps some women stuck where they are, or some voice saying that this dream is too big. That vision is just not realistic. How would you even find the time, right? Or, yeah, you can want those things, but what would everyone think? Who do you even think you are? And I know I've definitely have felt those things. I have thought those things for sure. And so then instead of letting the vision expand, what I see happen is women shrinking back down into something more reasonable and acceptable. And the problem with this is you can't build a life you fully love from a watered down version of what you actually truly want. Or, in other words, there will always be a sense of something being missing when you are not aligning your life, not pursuing your truest desires and dreams and calling. Now, this isn't to say that we shouldn't start small or be content with where we're at. Absolutely, we can have peace and joy in whatever season we're in, right? I'd say that after the last 2 years I've had with walking through divorce and business failures and confusion and moving back home. Oh, I did move into this super cute little apartment a few months ago. I forgot to update you all since my last episode. I think it was back in November. But yeah, after these last couple of years, I for sure can say that I know joy is possible no matter what. You can love your life and appreciate what you have even while you're in the wrestling and the struggling and the waiting and the not yet seeing. But there is a difference between keeping an eye on where you're headed and allowing that to direct you and inspire you, even if you can only take super small steps for right now. There's a difference between that and then shoving your dreams and desires down so that you don't have to feel the discomfort of actually owning those desires and taking small leaps of faith and courage and putting in the work to bring them into reality. So again, I don't necessarily think it's always a clarity issue, although of course the vision can and should always become more clear and more refined over time. But really, it's an issue of us not giving ourselves full permission to want it and then to go after it. When I say that creating a life you love involves getting clear on the vision you have for your life, what I mean is not just knowing what you're working toward, but even keeping your eye on it, keeping your vision clear and on your vision. But here's the trouble though. Everyday, ordinary life and all the obligations and responsibilities and our own insecurities will fog our vision up or can make us focus on other things altogether. And all too often, those other things are really us just maintaining what already exists, just getting by, right? And hoping for these little glimmers of joy somewhere in the margins. I can really relate to being in this place because that was me before Soul Care for the New Mom. For some of you longtime listeners, that is a throwback for sure. That was the name of this podcast when I first started it back in, gosh, was it 2017? 9 years ago? That is crazy. But before I allowed myself to use my gifts and share my story and dream of something bigger, I was a struggling and depressed and angry. We all know that part. Stay-at-home mom. And I don't want to fixate on the stay-at-home mom part because there was nothing wrong per se with me being a stay-at-home mom. There is nothing wrong with being a stay-at-home mom. But it wasn't the full picture, at least for me individually. It was what I thought I was supposed to do, what I thought I was supposed to want. And I do believe that me being home with my littles those first few years before starting my business was the right move. But the truth was, there was even more waiting for me, and I knew it. I knew it because these gosh darn ideas of what I could do and create and be and share in this world and the community I wanted to build for other moms like me, these ideas just would not leave me alone. And I am telling you, I resisted them so hard. Like, literally, I remember just going to church and just praying all the time, like, God, can you just take these fantasies, right? Like, I just felt like they were some fantasy. Will you just take these dreams away and help me be more content? And honestly, it was because I was terrified. I was terrified of losing my way, of neglecting my family, of not being humble, not doing the right things. And if I had kept listening to that fear, I would have missed out on so much blessing. And I actually wonder what would have become of me. I get emotional thinking about this because I do still remember how dark of a place I was in. Like, I remember so many days I did not want to get out of bed, and also some days where I didn't want to live. And maybe this whole talk of following what lights you up and going after your vision and creating a life you love, maybe it can sound generic to some, but I'm telling you, it comes from this place of knowing that for women like me, it can be a matter of life or death. Wow, look at me, still bringing it all back to mental health. You can take the woman out of emotional wellness coaching, but you can't take the coaching out of the woman, right? I could just go on and on, but Let me wrap up this point. Going back to what I was saying earlier, give yourself permission to get clear on your vision, to really identify and name and own, like actually own and say out loud and repeat it to yourself often what you desire and imagine for yourself in your future. Don't try to make it fit into your current reality. Don't just filter it through what feels realistic or responsible or what's expected of you. I want to challenge you to really let yourself dream and fully see what's inside of you without editing it down. Let it be big. Let it be this full, abundant life you actually want to wake up to, because that level of clarity and permission and ownership changes how you move. It changes what you prioritize and what you spend your time on. It changes what you say yes to and what you walk away from. So that is the first point or step or pillar. I don't even know what to call these. But the next one, which is actually very similar, is leaning into your unique passions and interests and gifts. Actually giving yourself the space and time to enjoy what has been placed inside of you, whether it's these creative pulls that you feel, or these hobbies that you have or used to have, right? Or these, I don't know, like these curiosities or little moments of joy that you look forward to. Do you want to know one of the things I love most about my life? This is going to sound so ridiculous to some of you, but it's how many movies and TV shows I get to watch. Like, I know that sounds so ridiculous, but I just love a good story so much. I cry and laugh out loud to myself all the time, like literally every day while I'm watching a show. And usually I am also working at the same time. So at least I'm, also being productive. But gosh, I can just get lost in a good story, in a good movie. And I used to feel embarrassed about that, about how much TV I watch. I used to think it was so indulgent. That was actually what I would call it. I'm like, it's just indulgent. But the funny thing is that these so-called indulgences in my life, like how I go for walks out in nature every day, how I don't start work until 10 a.m. I get to go out for coffee with friends a couple times a week. And or binging TV show after show with a glass of Olipop in my hand, right? And taking naps, taking myself out to the movies, whatever, all these little things that I do for myself. These indulgences are actually a big part of what keeps me so inspired and motivated and driven. The more I lean into these things, these passions or interests or whatever you want to call them, with balance, of course, right? I do still have to parent, right? I have to work, I have to budget, I have to do, normal everyday things, clean my house, wash dishes, so on. But the more I lean into these, the more energized I feel in my own life. And the easier it is to wake up and get my day started. And I'd even say that it makes me a harder worker. I am a hard worker. Like, you can say that some of my habits seem indulgent, maybe, or at least that's what I've, spent a few years calling it. But I know I work hard. I get so much done. And I really do believe it's because I don't deny myself the things that make my life sweeter. Now, am I saying everyone needs to watch 7 hours of TV a day like I do? No. That is my particular source of enjoyment. I have a best friend who loves baking bread, and I'm like, yeah, I'd love to eat a loaf of your homemade jalapeno cheddar sourdough bread, but I don't want to be in the kitchen baking bread. Does that energize or inspire me? No, it does not, right? We all have different interests and passions and hobbies. And similarly, we all have different gifts. But I think too many of us women are cutting ourselves off from these things. Women think that they're too busy or too tired, not realizing that these are what can actually fuel and energize them and maybe even be one of the most productive things they could be doing. I believe that the things you are naturally drawn to are not random. The conversations that light you up, the reels you love to save, the podcasts you enjoy listening to, the or the kind of work that utilizes your strengths and just feels like, wow, like you're really in your element. You feel aligned, you feel alive. I believe these are all a part of your makeup, your story, and they matter. And my challenge to you is to start paying attention again. Let those parts of you take up space. It doesn't have to be monetized or make you money for it to be valuable. It doesn't have to be the super productive thing to be well worth your time. What makes it worth it is the joy and vibrancy that it brings to you and that naturally spills out onto the rest of your life. I'm so grateful that I've created a life where I can take plenty of time for these little indulgences because it just makes me a happier person. I'm a better mom. I'm a more thoughtful and gracious friend. I'm more easygoing. And I'm able to pour into my work and relationships without feeling drained because my cup is already full. And yours can be too. But just like I mentioned earlier with, the vision thing, you have to give yourself permission. Give yourself permission to start incorporating more of the things that feel like you without judgment, without fear, and just watch how you come back online and how much sweeter life feels after that. Okay, I'm going to share one more step or point, and then I'm going to save the rest for next week because I don't want this to be too long. Honestly, this could be a 10-part series because that is just how much I have to share about this topic of creating a life you love. And it just matters. I really do think it matters for you, for your kids, for your family, for the people that you're here to reach and touch and serve. Which brings me to my last point for today, which is keeping relationships at the center. If you want to create a life you love, relationships need to stay at the center. A big part of this evolution, this rebrand for me is me coming back to what actually matters most. And I've realized that it's the relationships we get to build and the lives we get to impact during our time here on earth. Now, I'm not going to lie, I did lose sight of this these last couple of years. I got so caught up in maintaining, right? Just trying to keep business running, trying to stay afloat, trying to scale and grow and, do all these things. And I hate the way this sounds, but it's the truth. And I feel like probably there's quite a few business owners that can relate to this. I started thinking of you guys as numbers instead of these beautiful, amazing, precious souls that I get to speak to and encourage and connect with and empower. And it honestly breaks my heart a little when I think back on the ways I have shown up online that were not from the best of intentions, where I cared more about making a sale than actually sitting with you and getting to know you and seeing how I can better serve you. And I just want to say, I'm sorry. I'm sorry if you felt that. I feel that. I did feel that. And my hope is that everything I do from here on out is a major course correction and me getting back on track with what I'm actually here for and what really matters. Even if I do get called generic, even if there's crickets, I'd rather do a really great job helping just a few of you than do a lackluster job trying to reach the masses. Because one, people matter, your hearts matter, but two, because I know now that you can check all the boxes. You can reach success. You can do something big or impressive and yet still feel disconnected and unfulfilled from all of it because of relationship not being at the center of it. We are wired for connection. And when that piece is missing, not just from work or from business, like what I'm talking about, but even from motherhood, or from these spaces we spend time in, from these big goals or passions we chase, when we are more focused on ourselves than on actually seeing and connecting and loving these human beings around us, life can start to feel a little hollow, not to mention just lonely and isolating. And now that I've realized this, now that I've experienced what it's like to be on the wrong side of this, and then have also experienced what it's like to come back to relationship and really let people walk with me and let myself be myself and pour into others again. I know that for me personally, I don't want a hollow, lonely, lackluster life. I want a life that's full and deep and purposeful and passion driven. And that looks like getting into real, tangible connection, not just through content, not just through a screen, even though I'm so thankful for social media and for Zoom calls and for programs and all the things, but really in actual spaces, sitting across from one another, having honest conversations, processing life, wrestling through things together in real time. When you experience that kind of connection with the right people and with the right mindset, it reminds you of how wonderful life is. It grounds you and fills you up, and it brings you back into your life in a way that scrolling on your phone or hustling for the next milestone just can't. It is so easy to get caught up in the busyness of life, to get caught up in routines, especially as moms too, right? We've got the school drop-offs, we have homework and meals and bedtime and keeping up with the house. It's like we're just moving from one thing to the next, right? Trying to keep everything running. And sometimes we can end up prioritizing function over connection, right? Where we're getting everything done, but we're missing the moments. And that's just not what life is meant to be. I know in some seasons it might feel like that's what life has to be, and I do get that, right? Especially, girl, let me tell you, as a single mom, whew, I get that. There's so much to do, there's so much stress. Sometimes it can feel like there's no margin. But let me tell you something. When you live like this, when you don't keep relationship at the center, you're only half living. You're only half living. You're not actually experiencing the best parts of this life, and it's who we get to spend it with. I'm so thankful I get to spend this life with you all, with you amazing women, and with my girls, and with the sweetest of friends who have been with me through the hardest of times. Um, I'm thankful I get to spend this life with Jesus. Wow, relationship is everything. It just gives life so much more meaning. And when you start intentionally bringing your focus back to that, everything feels different because of it. Your work feels different, your energy feels different, even the way you feel about yourself changes. When you have solid, consistent connections and you are walking in the direction of your truest purpose. Because at that point, you're no longer just building something, but you're actually connected to it. I am so excited for what's to come this season for me and for you. If something in this episode resonated, I would really love to know. Please do not be a stranger. Please, please, please feel free to reach out anytime. And if you would you celebrate this new beginning with me by sharing this episode in your stories on Instagram and just tagging me at Jessie Redia? I know it's something so small, but again, these little moments of connection do matter. It lights me up to see you listening. And I know it can help this message reach more women who also need it, right? I hope you loved listening to this episode and that it moves you to create a life you love even more too. All right, friends, until next time.